Hello and welcome to our podcast. I'm Dani, and today Crate.com talks with Kenya Hutton, the Deputy Director of the Center for Black Equity. If you haven't heard of it, its mission is to promote a multinational LGBTQI plus network dedicated to improving health and wellness opportunities, economic empowerment, and equal rights, while promoting individual and collective work, responsibility, and self-determination. Remember, before we begin, if you're new here to this podcast, press subscribe on YouTube or in your podcast app. Now, hi, Kenya, and welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. I always give the audience here a little gist of what happens, on backstage, behind the scenes. And I gotta say, I love your energy. So I think this is
Thank
going to
you.
be such a fun conversation. And Kenya, in this podcast, this is how we do things. We always start with history because it's always good to know where people came from. I think it tells a lot about where we are going, right? Knowing what happened in the past. So, what is the
Absolutely.
story? What is the history of the Center for Black Equality?
Sure. So the Center for Black Equity, which I will just say CBE because saying Center for Black Equity four times fast will, it's a little difficult. So we say CBE, right? This is our logo, Center for Black Equity. Um, Funny enough, the Center for Black Equity started back in 1999 as the International Federation of Black Prides. It started, Black Pride started here in Washington, D.C. The official first registered Black Pride started here in Washington, D.C. in 1991. And then the founder of the Center for Black Equity, which was the International Federation of Black Prides, also known as IFBP, at about 19, he became president of DC Black Pride, I believe, in like 96 or 97, and then realized that there were Black Prides popping up around the country, right? And then he thought, he had this great idea to create an organization to really bring together all the Black prides so that we can start to support each other and, share resources and share information that was beneficial to our communities. Well, a small fact about Black Pride before I go into any further is that, it's origins is slightly different from mainstream pride, right? Where mainstream pride started off as, a protest, a riot, etc. DC Black Pride started off as a party, right? It started off as a party at an event called the Clubhouse, which also raised funds that everyone came together every year to Memorial Weekend to raise funds for HIV education, treatment, etc. And then when the clubhouse closed, it morphed into three of the people that was running it started what was called Black Gay Lesbian Day, and that's what turned into what we now is modern day Pride. Um, so with that, the president CEO Earl Folks saw a need to really bring these folks together so that we could create resources to continue being able to provide and put back in the community. When they started it, it was initially called just a Federation of Black Prides. Then they founded about one overseas, and that's what it changed to the name International Federation of Black Prides. So from around 1999 to about 2012, they was doing this work, kept on growing, starting Black Prides, really getting the movement growing. But around 2012, the board and the founder realized that the work they were doing extended beyond Black Pride, right? They was doing more advocacy work, fighting for rights and education and trainings. So the board decided to change the name of the organization to the Center for Black Equity, which we call CBE now. So that's how we started. That's how we got to the name CBE. From the from DC Black Pride and come together. I believe at that time it was about 7 or 8 other Black Prides with us. Now to date, we have over 50 domestically, and we have about a dozen international prides or Black prides, depending on where they're located, that are part of our network. From where we started, we are still growing and supporting and making sure that we are sharing the history of why this movement started, but also helping to provide resources to these Black prides so they can, thrive and excel and continue doing impactful work within their communities locally.
I love to hear all of this, Kenya. I honestly, I love when I admit my ignorance on this podcast because I think it's something that we just don't talk. We presume that all pride began with the protests and the protests and the movement, but it's not. And if we think about it, it makes a lot of sense if we really think on social history. A shame, but it makes sense.
No, it's
And
okay.
no, but I think it's something that really resonates with why we decided to do like a very focused series, let's say, on LGBTQI communities in this, because we have touched it, and I believe I said this in another episode, but we have touched the LGBT community as a sub-part, as a sub-product or as a sub-community within other things, but we have not stopped to address these issues as with the importance that they have. And
Yeah.
I feel that making this cut and saying, look, even inside this community, we have another reality that we are not talking enough.
Yeah.
So yeah, and with that, I just want to move to something next here that is knowing more about these challenges that the Black LGBTQI community face, and especially if we can think about it as more of a community and a global scale, in a bigger scale, actually, of issues, right? That if we address them, if we fix them, if we help each other out, we can all grow. Then it's just talking about one specific thing, but what is going on?
Yeah, so and that's a great follow-up question because though the Black Pride movement started as a way to create resources for community members that was struggling with HIV, access to medication, access to treatment, the importance and the reason why it grew to the way it did is because for one, representation. Many communities also did not feel represented in the mainstream Pride. For years, the impact of communities of color on the Pride movement was erased, right? It was something that people wasn't talking about. So that's one thing. But also, issues that the Black LGBT community face. And if you think about it this way, right, a lot of LGBTQ individuals, Black LGBTQ individuals, live at intersections that some folks don't have to live in, right? Where some individuals just have to deal with homophobia, right, or xenophobia, or transphobia. Those of us in this community, we have to deal with racism and homophobia. We have to deal with racism and transphobia, etc. So we are always existing in a space where we're addressing multiple things. So one of the things that we, and that's something that I think folks don't think about, that communities of color exist in these intersections of struggle that we have to have been resilient and push through and continue fighting for, right? We deal with all the issues that everyone else deals with, poverty, all the phobias, access to care, etc. But if you look at studies, historically, and even today, I can't even say just historically, because even in today, present time in 2024, what we do is we see that these issues are still pervasive and still impacting the Black community as it is, right? But then again, like I said, go put on top of that, you're LGBTQ, you're trans, you're queer, and you live in rural communities where you have a few thousand people, you're experiencing, social issues where you are afraid to go to your local clinic because the lady at the front desk at your clinic may go to church with your aunt. So you don't want to go in there and say, I have an STD. Because now your aunt's going to know who doesn't know that you're gay, right? You don't want to go in there and say, I need PrEP because you don't want that information to get out in the community, right? So we're living as a Black queer community in these spaces continuously, right? We've though many times it's projected how we've overcome, so many things. In reality, we're not. Like I say, it's the same struggle with a different paintbrush, right? It just looks a little differently, but when you get to the core of it, some of these things are still systematically ingrained in culture that puts the Black LGBTQ community at a deficit. Get political real quick. In America right now, we're dealing with a slew of anti-LGBTQ legislations being passed, right? That which are horrible. That being passed, being proposed, things are happening where they're trying to pretty much strip away the rights of the LGBT community and basically erase them from history. But also, the Black queer community is also experiencing that doubly because they're also doing that with Black history. In some states, they're rewriting what slavery was in this country. They're rewriting to say it was good for some people, right? They're rewriting the experiences of our people. So, as a Black queer person, I am my racial identity is being erased and being attacked, as well as my gender and sexual identity is being attacked. Right. So these are some of the things in a nutshell in a quick little podcast, because I can sit here and talk about this for days. It's some of the things that the Black LGBTQ plus community experiences on a day-to-day basis. This is our existence. This has been my existence as long as I knew who I was. I was having a conversation earlier about the experiences I have around law enforcement and how it automatically generates anxiety for me because of what I grew up around, right? And then now, coupled with me being queer, now I'm afraid of law enforcement, but I'm also afraid of gay bashing. Like I've been gay bashed right here in Washington, D.C., right? In DuPont Circle, as a matter of fact, I got gay bashed, right? Which is our one of our historically queer neighborhoods. I was gay bashed. So imagine how that plays into the psyche of a Black LGBTQ person, right? Again, I can go on for hours, but these are the reasons why the Center for Black Equity does what it does and tries to advocate for equity for all people, right? We don't think somebody should be better off than we just want to be treated like everybody else and have access to the resources that everyone else has without barriers of having to navigate some of these things or situations that we live on or live in on a day-to-day basis.
And that is just what equity really means, right? I think that's another
Pretty much.
thing that kind of baffles me when people say, "Oh, why are they asking for so many rights?" This is a phrase I'm never gonna get over. Why are you
Yeah.
asking for so many rights? Okay, that doesn't make sense in my head. I'm sorry, guys. For people that are listening for maybe more than two episodes, I've said this this sentence like so often, but it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thinking of this, and thank you actually for bringing your story, Kenya, for putting your colors into this. I always feel like it's so hard to really put ourselves into someone else's shoes, but when you share your story, it helps us see better
Mhm.
what happens and what can happen and how it can affect someone for sure. But having this painting of what is going on and how far we have not actually gone, what is the help that center is offering the communities? What programs do you have, and how do you coordinate this network that you have created?
Sure. So we do a few things. One of our major activities, we still work very closely with our Pride leaders around the world, right? We firmly believe that these organizers have the ability to mobilize their communities better than I can, right? I'm based in Washington, D.C., but someone in rural Alabama, they know how to mobilize their community. They know the things and how to navigate those spaces better than I do. So what we do is one of the things we do, and actually coming up, is the Black Pride Leadership Summit. We bring together all the Black Prides from around the world for 3 days, and we really sit down and strategize on ways that they can not only go back and mobilize their communities, but also give them tools and resources and connections to do that. One of the things we launched at the last summit was our regional alliances, right? So we created almost like little pods around the country of 3 or 4 states that can work together to address issues in their region, right? And then they funnel it back to us on the national level, and then we're able to provide our national support. Another thing we do is we very often we have being here in Washington D.C. and being in the work for such as long as I have and Earl Folks has, we have really good strong connections with the White House, the CDC, HHS. So we take some of these meetings and take the information from our members, and then we elevate them to the powers that be. So let them know, hey, this is what's going on in our communities. This is what's going on. This is what we need. I've worked extensively with HHS, Health and Human Services. Although I use acronyms a lot, I'm sorry. I use HHS. I realized I was like, oh wait, people might not know. Health and Human Service. I worked very extensively with them ever since the outbreak of COVID started, right? And how do we be able to get resources in communities, especially communities of color, that was disproportionately being affected by COVID, right? Worked with them, and that was also a thing. We worked with our pride organizers, and they helped funnel the information and create events and spaces for the health departments to be able to come and provide the services that they weren't able to a community they weren't able to connect with. We did the same thing with NPOX. With NPOX, when it came out and that was being targeted to the community, we worked with our community leaders to figure out what's going on, why our community wasn't getting the vaccines, why we were experiencing it so much, and elevated that to HHS, to the Center for Disease Control, to the White House, to say, this is what's going on, and here goes a plan of how we can do that. And we worked with them hand in hand to execute these things to make sure that we increased sources or resources for communities that have not historically had access to all these services being offered. We also do work around National HIV Testing Day, World AIDS Day. We really do a lot of work to really, again, mobilize our communities. And a lot of it is utilizing some of our pride leaders to help us do that.
I love the way you speak of it because it all comes to me as collaboration, right?
Absolutely.
As working together, as going after those who know how to do it within their communities, and then moving forward from that. And in that sense, feels like people are actually being quite well served, by the center. And in this perspective, maybe we could talk a little bit about these collaborations that I sensed, especially maybe with organizations that could help further your mission, right? You have done a lot of good work, especially with advocacy and changing, the way people are perceiving the issues or understanding the needs. So
Mhm.
how does it work, and what is the role that you see for these collaborations?
So, creating spaces for us to be able to speak. One of the things that I do, especially when we partner with other organizations, larger organizations, more funded organizations, because that's a thing, right? I'm not gonna get into that, but organizations that are more funded than we are, right? When there's an opportunity for a conversation about communities of color, bring us to the table. Don't talk for us, let us talk for ourselves, right? And that's something that we implore here at the Center for Black Equity is when I have an opportunity to get to a table, and the minute I hear something, come on, as it happened this year, where I was brought to a discussion around the LGBT community, and they started talking about trans issues, but there was no trans people on the panel. So I said, how this is you're doing a disservice by not having a trans person on the panel. I can speak on behalf of, but you need to have a trans person here to speak on for themselves. Like I can speak on being, a child of immigrants growing up from New York City, et cetera. So I can speak to my situation better than anybody else can. And I think, what we need is from our partners to be able to do the same. Bring us to the table, bring us to part of the conversations, and also have conversations with us about what you're able to offer, what we're able to offer, so we can have strong collaborations. Because I don't think collaboration should be only, I'm getting something out of the deal. Another word we use is more so partnerships. How can we partner to really elevate the work that you're doing and elevate the communities that we're impacting so we can both walk away with something and say, oh, this was good for everybody, right? That's what, in my mind, true collaboration, true partnership looks like. And we are developing those. We have those partners that are also advocacy organizations, also doing the work that we're able to partner to really amplify the message. Because one of the things I feel like we do as organizations, right, is, I'll be over here and I'll do some work, and you'll be over there doing the same work, right? And then we have someone over there doing pretty much the same work. Instead of us saying, okay, you're doing something mediocre over there, you're doing something mediocre, but I'm doing mediocre work over here. Let's combine our resources to really have a really big, impactful effect on our community. And that's something that as you said earlier, the sense of collaboration, like we do it with our Black Pride leaders, but I would love doing that with other organizations as well, because I think that's how we can really make some strong impact. When they hear all of us saying the same thing, the same tone, we'll be able to see some real strong differences, some real strong changes.
Now, Kenya, I would love to hear more about what is your plans for the future? What are your plans for the future, actually, right? What would be the next goals for CBE?
Sure. So, right now, the Center for Black Equity is CBE, is in a transition period, right? Our president CEO has been running this organization for 25 years, from its founding up until where it is today as a global organization, one of the first queer civil rights organizations. He's about to retire. And I will be stepping into the role come August 1st as an interim CEO president of the Center for Black Equity. With that, some of my next goals is to really amplify the work that we've already done, and revisit it to a space where we need to let folks know that these situations are still happening, right? So the next phase, one of the things that I plan to do within the first 6 months is to reestablish some partnerships with organizations to really elevate a message. Right now, we're in a major pivotal election year. So my major focus right now is going to be not just getting out the vote, but voter education. So individuals know what's at risk when they vote, right? So that's one of the big hurdles that we have ahead of us right now, is making sure that our community comes out and votes correctly, to their best interest. The next phase again is to get back on the hill, and be, my current CEO president, he's not me. I'm a lot more in your face, open, will speak, and ask for what I want, ask for what I need a little bit more directly. So one of the next things for the Center for Black Equity, it will be to be getting back into that space of strong advocacy, strong education, right? One of the things we've learned is that sometimes people just don't know because they exist in a space of blissful ignorance where they don't know what's going on. And because of that, they think everything is, rose tinted glasses. So my goal is to go on a major campaign to educate as much people as I can on the issues that not just the Black, but the Black LGBTQ community experiences, right? To really raise awareness about what's going on so we can start driving some support. So that when not just the Black queer community, but other people go to the polls, they can vote in a way where they're thinking about the experiences that they learned from us that people are experiencing when they go to the polls. They can make educated decisions and hold elected officials accountable, right? So when we say, hey, we need more access to these things, we have even more people. We have our community and allies really making their voices louder to really help bring the resources we need so we can get back to that one word that causes so much confusion of equity. Right? Because folks, when you live in the margin, when you don't live in the margins, you don't understand that everyone is not getting everything that you think they are. So really trying to make sure that we are able to educate folks in a non-threatening, non-aggressive way, letting people know that that's not exactly the case, and this is how you can help, right? And you can help from a multitude of ways. You can help from volunteering, right? Um, and I talk a lot about Black Pride, but Black Prides are not only for Black people to attend. We encourage everybody to come and learn. I know in DC we have a workshop series, we have a poetry slam. We can come and learn some of the issues that the Black LGBTQ community experiences. We have covered topics from, spirituality to healthcare to issues in just dating, right? We encourage everybody to come sit in a workshop, sit in a poetry slam, and hear and understand and see what we do and there's some of the issues that you might not be aware of that we are addressing day to day, right? Come and attend a Pride. Come and volunteer. Come and volunteer at a Pride. If you have a good service, if you are a good marketer, if you are a good, graphic designer, you're good at web design, reach out to us, the Center for Black Equity, or even if you want to work someplace more local, at one of the local prides, reach out to us and we'll connect you if you have time to offer that service, because many of our organizations are underfunded and we're operating on a shoestring budget. Many of us wear many hats in these spaces. So if you have a skill that you're willing to offer to an organization, even if it's as simple as writing, if it's as simple as dusting the bookshelves, whatever it is, we appreciate that support, right? So volunteering can be as simple as that. And the last thing is, if you're able, donate. Where you may think, $5, $10 is not going to make a difference. It makes a lot of it. It makes it's there's a saying where it's harder to get one person to donate $1 million than it is for 1 million people to donate $1, right? So if you have $5, we appreciate it. We'll take it. It'll go towards, paying for a Zoom account. It'll go towards paying for a light, paying for something. And if you could donate more, great. Donate whatever you can. But those are some great ways that we think that, folks can help support the organization and help the work that we do as we move into this next phase of elevation and education of what the Black LGBT community is experiencing on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you for sharing all of this, Kenya. I'm going to share with people now the link to your page because I believe that this is the best and easiest way to either volunteer or donate, right? So it's centerforblack.equity.org. I'm going to add the link to it on the description of this episode so no one will have an excuse to not get in touch.
Yes, click the link, look at us, follow our social media, which is we update that all the time, and reach out to us, right? There's an email address. I respond to literally every single email. So you send that email in, you'll get a response from me and it'll come directly to me. And we can figure out the best way to support. We have people that support us from other countries, from other states. We'll figure out a way. If it's on your heart to lend some support, I'll figure out a way for you to do it.
Amazing. Thank you, Kenya. Thank you so much for joining us today. This was a really wonderful conversation. I loved it.
No problem. Thank you for having me. This was great. This was a great conversation. Thank you.
It was a pleasure. And for everyone else listening or watching us on YouTube right now, thank you so much for this more episode. Thank you for staying. And remember, if you liked it, press subscribe, like the content, right? We gotta like the
Thumbs
content.
up, like it, yes.
And share it with your friends, with your family, with everyone that you feel like can profit from this conversation. Because this helps us, one, teach the algorithms that this is an important conversation. And then two, spread the word about the importance of the Center for Black Equity. Reach out, help out if you can. There's no excuses, guys. So go for it. And I see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.